Hello, you are listening to the Eiffel Tower podcast. My name's Oliver G. I'm an Australian in Paris. This show is usually, well, dare I say it, it's usually fun, entertaining, a slice of life in Paris. And my goal is to sort of distract you from everything that's happening in the world and take you on a one-way ticket to Paris, if only for half an hour, but not today, for a number of reasons. Firstly, this is going to be a shorter episode. Secondly, I'm not going to try and distract you. I think it's important that we talk about what's going on. And third, I want to explain how I want to be part of the Black Lives Matter movement and how I want to adapt this show accordingly, not just in an important time like this, but ongoing. So I want to talk to you about that. I want to talk to you about exactly what's happening in Paris. I know a lot of you people who are listening either live in Paris or have a keen interest in this city. So I think you might be interested to hear what's been going on with protests and how the city of Paris and the country of France has been reacting to everything. But also I want to talk, kind of unusually for me as a former journalist, I want to talk about my opinion on what's going on and, like I said, how I plan to be part of it. So let's get on with the show. Here we go. So before we get anywhere, I want to sort of catch everyone up with what's happening in France. I think everyone knows what's happening in the US. Indeed, I believe, in fact, I know that most listeners to this podcast are in the US. But just so you know, while you guys have been having big protests in the States, they've started in Paris too. What happened was, on Tuesday last week, there were big protests. I'm talking like 20,000 people were protesting for Black Lives Matter, but not exactly the same as the one in the States for George Floyd and others. What happened in Paris was about 4 years ago, a young French Malian man was killed while in police custody. And it was super controversial at the time and continues to be because of the cause of his death. Different coroner's reports, different autopsies have said different things. The family of the deceased young man, they ran a coroner's report that concluded that he was strangled. And the police report had some other reason for his death, that he died in the ambulance on the way to the hospital. And more news about these autopsies came out, prompting huge protests that tied in with the Black Lives Matter ones in America. I mean, it's the same reason. But I think it was kind of, the timing was, I don't know if the timing was coincidental or whether the American protest led to the one in France being a lot bigger than it usually would have been. But there were some run-ins with the police. There was some burning of scooters and stuff. Maybe you saw it on the news. But there was a big protest. And more recently at the weekend, there was a protest in central Paris at the US consulate, or near it, because they blocked it off. And that was probably more in line with the ones that have been going on in America. So that was just to kind of keep you to date on the news side of thing. I'll talk about the news side of thing in a second. But also, anyone who follows a lot of Paris accounts like I do, you'll see that a lot of the sort of people in the community, the people like influencers and coffee shop owners, a lot of people have been sharing black squares on their Instagram posts and how to help and that kind of stuff. So it really has been made an impact over in Paris and in France. I should mention there are other protests in other French cities as well, like Lille, Marseille, and so on. But even in, for example, Peloton Coffee Shop, which I visit quite a lot down in the Marais, they've painted a big picture of George Floyd on the glass wall front, I guess, with the names of victims behind him. So it's definitely noticeable what's happening here. But that's not what I'm really here to talk about. That was just to give you a bit of an idea of what's happening in Paris. What I wanted to talk about, I wanted to take this chance to talk about, firstly, my reaction to everything, which is weird for me to do because firstly, this podcast isn't about me, it's about Paris. But secondly, as some of you maybe know, and maybe a lot of you know, I used to be a journalist. That's what I came to Paris for. I came during another really turbulent time. I came during the terror attacks. In fact, I flew to France to cover the Charlie Hebdo terror attack. And then, as you all know, later that year, there was the tragic attack in November with all that indiscriminate killing in the nightclubs and terraces and stuff. So what's been interesting for me is my reaction to everything that's happening with the Black Lives Matter has been really similar to that. What I would have done as a journalist is I've sat reading, like voraciously reading everything that's happening, listening, learning, but I haven't jumped onto social media really to share my thoughts on it. A journalist doesn't, and I haven't at this point yet. Rather, I've been talking and listening, talking to friends, talking to family, understanding, and it's made me look at everything that I've done as well, which I think is really important for us all to do. And I asked myself, on this podcast, on the Eiffel Tower, I've been doing it for 3 years, have I been diverse? And I haven't. I haven't been diverse enough. I realize that, I've had a handful of people of color on the show, hardly enough. There are people doing amazing things in Paris, telling great stories, and I'll talk to you in a second about how I plan to help amplify those voices going forward. But when it came time to do an episode like this, my first thought was, what you do as a journalist would be get someone who, can give me the ultimate word on what's happening. And then reading all these posts online, you realize, or I've learned, that the last thing you should do is force someone to be a spokesperson, to force a person of color to come on this show and me to say, hey, explain it to us, or we need to know. That's absolutely the wrong thing. The thing that we should do is go online, read about it, watch the videos, understand. So what I did do is I talked to a handful of people of color in Paris, people who are doing great things in Paris. I saw a lot of their posts where we want to be seen, we want to be heard. And I said, I'm in this position where I'm very fortunate to have a platform. I know a lot of people listen to this podcast. And I said to them, how can I share it? How can we do it? And the consensus that came to me was the worst thing I could do was jump on some kind of hashtag trend and have, 6 black people in a row telling their stories of Paris. It's not a trend, this is something you have to make as a change that's sustained, that goes on beyond just an episode or two. Or, like I said, the consensus is be the change, make the change. Don't just promise something quickly, like flash in the pan. The other thing is, and I was real clear that I wasn't looking for this, but you can't get people of color on to explain their life and the struggles they go through and just explain it to us. And that's not what I want to do either. I think we should be following them all and learning and understanding. If you follow, I'm going to share a lot of this on Instagram, probably today or in the coming days, people to follow who are taking this opportunity to tell their stories. People who, for example, in Paris started businesses without showing their faces because they didn't think that they'd get customers until now, People are saying, I'm an African-American man that runs this company, things like that. It's shocking. I talked to a bunch of people and I'm really excited to have them on the show telling their Parisian stories, to give you a little glimpse into the people I'm talking about and people that you should be following. Sitania from the podcast Dinner for One. Have you heard of her? If not, you should absolutely go and listen to it. She does a show where she got a great story. She came to Paris for a French man that ended in a divorce, and now she does a show about her life and cooking. As she says, it involves a lot of love and lots of red wine. I've been chatting with her. We're going to cook something together. We're going to do a fun episode. I talked to Yannick from My Parisian Life, who's a lovely woman and doing really cool stuff and really bringing the community together. And by community, I mean everyone that lives in Paris, doing all these events and everything. She'll be on the show too. But and I actually talked to a lot more people, including, for example, tour guides and lifestyle photographers and social media account runners for companies, expat communities, things like this. So I'm going to feature a lot of these voices. I'm going to diversify. That's one thing I'm going to do. That's my goal, is to diversify and amplify while still sharing Paris, So I've taken a good look at what I do and what I want to do, and this is part of it. The other thing is sort of more quick and tangible changes that you'll notice. I want to have discussions going. The book club book that I selected for June is by James Baldwin, who, if you don't know who that is, it's an African-American man who moved to Paris in 1956, I believe, to get away from just continual racism. And the book, I haven't read it, as with all the book club books. I've started reading it now, but it's not about race, and it's not about systematic racism and stuff like that. It's about it's a fictional story about sort of bisexual and gay life in France. But my idea is that it'll be a gateway thing. We read about Paris, as always. We can take it further, read more of James Baldwin's books, which is almost certainly what I'm going to do. More tangible changes. Lena has yesterday did a painting of Josephine Baker that she's raffling it off or she's auctioning it off, but sending all the proceeds towards one of the charities involved with this movement. Anyway, I'm going to keep this short. Like, I make a living off asking people to listen to me, or hoping that people listen to me. And strangely, this time, I'm going to end this episode by saying, don't listen to me. Listen to the people telling the stories that they've struggled to have heard before. People who've been silenced. People who, if you're here because you like Paris and you want Paris voices, the same exact kind of stories are there to be heard. And I'm going to try and share them all, and I think you should be listening to them. So, like I said, this is a shorter episode. What is it, 10 minutes, 15 minutes? Spend the time that you listen to me usually now doing some research. Read up on it. Send me an email. Tell me people that I should focus on. And do the same thing, I think now it's more important than ever that we listen and act. Ally yourself and be clear about it. Enough with the hate. I mean, so much hate on the internet. I can't even believe it. Like, just be a better person. I'm going to try and be, I'm not a hateful person, but I'm going to try and be a better person as well. I'm going to try and, like I said, diversify. Easy to do. I think we can all do it. Diversify. I'm going to diversify and amplify if I can. And ally. I'm going to be clear about it. I hope you guys will do the same and will enjoy the ride. It's going to be the same type of show, but with a lot more color in, and I think a more colorful show will be a beautiful thing. So that's it, guys. What we need in this world is change. Serious change. So yes, a change is going to come. A change is coming. The times, they are changing. Be part of it. I want to be part of it. I want to diversify, amplify. I want to share the cool Paris stories from people doing cool things. Black lives, black voices, minority voices, people of color. Let's do it. Now's the time. Thanks for listening, and keep an eye on my social media, where I'm going to be promoting people that you can follow too, to add a bit of diversity to your own feeds as well. The world will be a better place. Let's do it. I'll see you next time.